There are things that I've discovered or learned behind the scenes that do make me kind of wish that, like, I don't want to know this stuff. Knowing the inner workings of how things work or what's going on behind the scenes can really change your perspective on it. So there's faces to a brand who may not have ever mixed a chemical in their life. There's chemists who may have never touched a car in their life. So we were always on the cleaner cast folks were always on ours. So we were just kind of like, whose show is what now at this point? Alex and I got a phone call that the House of Rags was this new up and comer, and they had started a business. It was a phone call from Jamie and Eddie, and that they had started a business, and we just were completely blindsided. We had no idea that any of this was going on behind the scenes for over a year. I'm not in this.
Like, I'm more upset. More upset that I lost a friend.
It's that, yeah, like I was enjoying what I was doing every single week, and there are better ways to go about things. I've never wanted to.
Welcome to the Auto Detailing Podcast, Joey Balinski.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Glad to be here.
I think we have a lot to get to. And like I talked about before we started recording, so often I've done so many podcast episodes where we do like a great podcast before the episode, before we start recording. So I really, as I admitted to you, I don't know a ton about you. I've seen some videos with you in it, some podcasts with you in it. But to be totally frank, I don't watch a lot of other detailing content. And so
there's a lot out there. So I don't blame you.
Yeah, but these are actually my favorite podcast episodes to do, because I feel like I ask the questions that I would ask normally, but if I already knew the answer, I wouldn't ask, right? So why don't you just give us a little like summary, and take as much time as you need. It doesn't even need to be a short summary of who you are.
Yeah, man. I'm Joey, JB, as you guys know. I'm just a detailing enthusiast. I'm just a guy who has always enjoyed having things be clean, whether it's my room, whether it's my car, whether it's my phone, anything, just always clean. So detailing has always been something that I've been drawn to, and the to skip over all that stuff, the history part. In June 2023, I was approached by Eddie Cologne to do a podcast, a potential podcast. Now, to kind of go over what was going on at that time, big Rag Company follower. Like I've been listening to the Rag Company podcast for years, and participating in their live chat and their Q&A, and just making good friends with the people there. And that's kind of how I got to bond with everybody in this industry. Is that's where I got to know everybody. That's where I met Jamie. That's where I met Eddie. That's where I met Alex. That's where I've just met a lot of great people in this community. So around that time, we were all, putzing around in the live chat. This was around like spring of 2023. I had gotten news that I had to go in for my second open heart surgery in June of 2023. And at that time, Eddie had reached out to me. I wasn't doing much other than just hanging around the house and doing my recovery stuff. And he reached out asking if I want to do a podcast. And I was like, I've never done a podcast. I don't know why anybody wants to hear what I have to talk about. But I will give it a shot. It'll give me something to keep my mind off of everything else that was going on. So we had a great run of a little bit over a year with tons of great guests, and that kind of just like built so many different friendships and relationships with guests that we've had on that I still talk to this day. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I'm sure you've got some other questions to get into specifics, but that's kind of me.
What is your full-time job?
I work for a large tech company in developer relations. So I handle a lot of concerns for app developers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is your
gives me enough time to just putz around in the garage and try new products and make some videos and whatnot. Yeah.
So what is your normal day look like with your job? Like, do you work from home, or do you sit right where you're sitting, and what kind of problems are you dealing with day to day?
So I do work from home. I am, I guess my commute is a couple minutes from the bedroom to the office.
So it's a little bit
So
farther from the bed from and one side of the room to the other side of
yeah,
the
it
room.
depends. So yeah, I'll usually start work around like 7:30 in the morning, and just go through my whole day. I can't talk about too much of. I mean,
Okay.
some people know what I work for, who I work for, and
Okay.
confidentiality and stuff like that. So there's only so much I can say, but
Okay.
yeah, it's standard 9 to 5 day, and then after that it's literally just I dive into the detailing world. My wife will probably tell me like, okay, enough detailing for the day, let's talk about something else. But yeah, it's truly my passion, and what really lets me like decompress from the day to day.
What do you think it was about, just makes me love the internet because it's like you can have a passion and then find a group of people all around that passion just through something like a live stream or something like that.
Yes.
What was it? I got an opportunity to sit down really for the first time. Well, it was for the first time with Dane and Anthony when I went to the Chicago Auto Pros
Yeah.
creator event thing and did a podcast with them, and just two awesome dudes.
Yeah.
Dane is phenomenal at storytelling.
Yep.
Um, and Anthony's really there to razz Dane, I think, which is like
Yeah, they
they make
both
a
have a
perfect
way with
couple.
words, and yes, I think that's the perfect way to describe them is that odd couple that
A
just
little bit of the
feed off
odd
of each
couple.
other. Yeah.
So I could see why you would be drawn to them, and I really enjoyed that podcast and have thought about reaching out to them again to do more podcasts. But what was it about? I think you mentioned it was like their podcast that really drew you in, or their live streams
Yeah,
where
it
you
was
started
it was the
interacting.
Q&A,
Okay,
and
Q&A.
like the
Okay.
podcast.
So what was it about that drew you in, or that you liked so much about it?
Um, there was like a so there was a period of time where I had like I kind of like life got in the way, right? So like detailing hobbies, like they weren't as important as they were. So I would say like there was probably a period of like 5 years where I was just like I'm not paying attention to what's going on online with what's new detailing products and this and that. So I had rediscovered the rag company in 2020, like when we're all locked down at home and trying to find stuff to do and whatever. So I think what drew me to it was I was watching their videos, and I'd watched their videos 10 years prior. um, and I was watching their videos and learned that they had a live thing every week. And I'm never the guy that wants to do live stuff. I'm never the guy that wants to play video games online and talk to somebody. Like that's my time. Like I don't want to talk. I don't want to like interact with anybody. That's just for me to kind of like
Do you
decompress.
interact with a lot of people during work?
Yeah. I
Okay,
do.
okay, okay.
Like there's a lot. There's a lot of
So detailing
of
is like
communication.
decompress time. The last thing you want to do is like
Yeah, I was like, don't ask me
interact
questions about it.
with
I don't
more
know why
people.
I'm using this product. I like this product, like that kind of stuff. So,
Okay.
um, then I saw that there's this live chat and a bunch of people who think like me, a bunch of people I can talk to that my wife doesn't have to hear about, right? Like I
Totally.
don't
Because
have
if
to
she's like
bore
my
her with
wife, she
all of this
doesn't
stuff.
care,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. She'll care to a point, and then she looks at me. She's like, "You've reached your limit for the day."
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just like seeing that there's other people with this level of passion and uh, uh, the sense of community that was built. Because I was seeing the same people every week. It wasn't just
Mhm.
like random people. It was people I got to know based on whether it was the username, their real name, whatever. And the fact that Anthony, Dane, Levi, they took the time to pull up every comment and answer every question, even if it meant going over time, like that showed to me that they cared. um, Not a lot of brands need to do that. Not a lot of I can't tell you many brands that have a live customer service stream every week to answer these questions. So because I had been out of it for a while, I was like, I've got some questions I want to ask about these products, these new products. And it kind of just went from there. Then the whole TRCMA thing came about, which blew up the chat even more. I met more people, and that's pretty much it. Is I like to think I'm a good judge of character, and the characters at the rag company are just some of the best people I've ever met or spoke to, and those are the people I want to do business with. So the fact that there was a business relationship, there was a personal aspect to it. They're just very supportive. They're very supportive of of my videos or doing podcasts or whatever it might be. And that turned into this year, beginning of this year, I was selected as a grand ambassador for the rag company. So it's their version of a sponsorship. And so I've gotten product throughout the year to make content and videos with and give reviews about, and kind of give me something to talk about on our podcast. And I'm just very thankful for that. And it's just an amazing opportunity with some amazing people.
And I think so. When I was thinking about our podcast together, it reminded me of Claude Harris, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he had a full-time job, and I interviewed him a long time ago, and kind of have done multiple podcasts throughout his kind of journey. He's older guy, so he retired, and now detailing is more of his full-time thing. But like 7 years ago, when I first interviewed him, kind of having a full-time gig and a part-time detailer was kind of almost frowned upon. But
yeah,
so I was kind of thinking about that for our podcast, but what I'm hearing that I really like, because is that you never wanted detailing as a business. You're just a straight enthusiast, right?
Yeah. I do have a side hustle, right? Like I have friends, I have families, I've got neighbors, acquaintances that I'll take care of their vehicles for. But yeah, it never crossed my mind to turn it into a business or quit my full-time job or something. Like, I mean, obviously we all have our days where we're like, screw our job, like I want to do something else, right? So like
I have those days as
my
own boss. Like my boss is such a jerk,
Exactly. So those do pop up in my head sometimes, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. Like that's not to say like things might change in the future, but I'm enjoying what's happening right now. So
I think that's such a sweet spot too. There's so often as we talked about this before we started recording, but video podcast in general were never popular at all until recently, right? And I don't know if it's the Joe Rogan effect. Who knows? I actually find myself getting more involved in video podcasts outside of like the detailing space, because it's interesting to hear other people's perspectives, I think, about even like I was watching the Iced Coffee Hour, and they were interviewing the guy from Vin Wiki, which I saw. I don't even know his name, but I saw him on the Obsessed Garage channel like a long time ago. I spent 30 minutes. I don't care about the Iced Coffee Hour podcast or Vin Wiki. I spent 30 minutes watching because it was just so interesting to watch the dynamic between the three of them talk and interact, and some of the stories that came through. And because I'm trying to understand why video podcasts are like becoming popular again. So I'm watching them, right? And I'm like, this is so cool. Like I love video podcasts now, right? And it's even fun. Cooler. It's fun. And I think so. One thing that I'm trying to do with that too is not just interview detailers that detail as a business, right? And because I think in a different vein, but maybe the same, because I think they said it on that podcast, when you become professional in something, you have a different perspective on it. And I think the guy from Vin Wiki was talking specifically about like exotic car rental. I think I'm trying to tie it in. I think this is how I'm tying it in. And he said, when you become professional in something, you have a different perspective on that thing as a professional, right? Versus being just an enthusiast. And I think one thing that I've realized, because I've worked on all sides of this industry, and I think when I became professional, quote unquote, even though I don't love that term, it jades you a little bit.
Yes.
And I think all that to say, I think it seems like you're in a really good spot. And I find most people that don't rely on detailing for income to sustain their lifestyle have a much fresher approach to things, are not as jaded, are not as conniving and fake, know.
Well, I feel very lucky in that, like, I can say what I want to say, right? Because like you said, I've got no skin in the game. This is me picking up a glass cleaner being like, this is the greatest glass cleaner I've ever tried personally, right? Like, not in the world personally. But I will say that having a podcast for the last year and a half, and being in that scene, there are things that I've discovered or learned behind the scenes that do make me kind of wish that, like, I don't want to know this stuff. I wish I could just go back to being the guy in his driveway, not giving a damn about anything. But sometimes knowing, like you said, knowing the inner workings of how things work or what's going on behind the scenes can really change your perspective on it. So I try to
What's
like
one
balance it, because
thing?
I don't want to hate detailing. I love it. So I don't want certain things I hear or certain people to ruin it for me. So that's yeah.
And that happens quick. And I'll be honest, I have been full in on being jaded,
Yes.
and no, it's like I have a saying. I don't know if it makes any sense to anyone else other than me, but the more I know, the more I wish I didn't know. You
Yes.
know,
I am that way.
um, but in that vein, do you remember the first kind of like back end baseball thing you heard, or like behind industry doors that you were kind of like, oh my gosh? I'll give you mine to give you some time to think about it. So I got hired by a chemical manufacturer, blender,
Yeah.
and they brought me in and they told me they made the majority of chemical guys products.
Yes.
And that to me was like the biggest revelation I had ever heard. That was like the
You were like,
curtain
wait, there's no
drop.
chemical guy.
Yeah,
Someone
like,
makes it.
and I think I asked that question of like, how is that possible? Don't they make
Yeah.
their own products?
Yeah.
Right? And the veil was kind of pulled back at that point, and then it went all downhill from there. But
Yes.
do you remember for you, like one of the, it doesn't have to be the first, but like maybe one of the first things that you're like, is that true?
Definitely
And
the
then,
same thing. Like I didn't know about blenders, and I didn't know about different contracts and different whatever. Like I didn't know about anything that went back there, right? I was just like, somehow they ended up on a shelf at AutoZone, and I get to try it, right? Like that's how naive I was. So I would say, like, I was a big Adams fan. Still am a big Adams fan.
Adam
But
Patali, by the way, sorry to
oh,
cut you
great guy.
off. Great guy.
Great guy. I haven't
Yeah,
met him. I've watched tons of interviews with him, like stuff with the Rag Company. He just seems like a really good guy.
he's incredible.
But yeah, like learning about like the whole like B&B blending, and how they're a powerhouse and make a whole bunch of stuff, or little blenders around the country that are like, like if you've got 10 brands, there's two blenders making stuff for them. Like that kind of stuff was my first, oh, okay, like this is
This is how it works.
there's some magic going on behind the curtain, right? Like there's faces to a brand who may not have ever mixed a chemical in their life. There's chemists who may have never touched a car in their life. So yeah, that was all eye-opening to me.
There's a big divide. I don't think people, one thing that was another one that just reminded me of when you said that is there's a big divide that you wouldn't think between chemists who aren't even car people, don't care about car cleaning at all, and then end users or
Mhm.
sales guys that have to work with these chemists, and
Yep.
the chemists they really don't know anything about car care, but yet
Yep.
they're making products for car care,
Yep. It's the
which is a
same. I mean,
really
it's the same thing
weird
like with
thing.
my day-to-day, like working with an engineer who's never going to talk to the customer or the developer or something like that. And like
Oh,
same
okay.
thing. The engineer is like, I'm building what I was told to build. You deal
Got
with the
it.
customer service stuff. So same kind of concept. I get it. It's everywhere.
That brings up another thing too, is sometimes in this detailing space, we think, and I really don't want this to just be a bitch fest, but sometimes we think it's only isolated to like our industry, but
Yeah.
it's comforting to know that like this is
Oh,
very
it's everywhere.
common. It's
Yeah.
everywhere,
It's
right? And I think
yep.
to your point, there's so many comments that like, oh, they're just going to B&B and they're just getting, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, first of all, white labeling is very common in
Yes.
the whole
There's
entire
nothing
world.
wrong with it. There's this stigma around it that, oh, it's, you did a half-ass job because you had someone else do it for you. It's like, no, you're being smart about it.
Mhm.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, and you still have to have a lot of knowledge to know what you want, right? You have to be
Yes.
like you have to be able to tell the engineer what to do so he can code the app or whatever. right?
Exactly.
It's like you still have to be able to tell the chemist what you're looking for.
You've got to try it. You've got to go back to them and say that's not the answer. You've got to
Right.
come back again. It's the same process. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of people that just buy the stock blends and remarket it and relabel it and whatever. But that is also life, right? Like you think Yeti is really making like this cup? No, they
Exactly.
have a manufacturer for it, and there's
The more stuff you look around your house, you're just if you think of it from that perspective, you'll tie a lot more of it together.
Yeah. So you've been doing a podcast and the podcast was you, Eddie, and Jamie.
So it was just me and Eddie. We started the Keep It Real podcast, and it was just our whole premise was.
And you guys connected through the Rad Company. That's how you guys connected.
Yeah, through the Rad Company, through the chat. Yep, I had seen him. I had seen like a couple of his podcasts that he had done with Jamie, like the Pink episode that they did, and then I started to watch a couple of his videos. I kind of like this guy. Like he's a funny guy. He's entertaining. Like he captures you. So when he asked me, like, we had been chatting for a while, but when he asked me to do the podcast, I was like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, we started the podcast in July of 2023. We ended it, I believe, in July 2024. So we had a year run, but I would say like our sister podcast was the Cleaner Cast with Jamie and Alex. And then we kind of just all became we were going on their show, they were coming on our show. It was just kind of a big melting pot of personalities. So, but yeah, the whole premise of Keep It Real was just like people were going on these podcasts. They beating around the bush. They weren't really being honest. We just wanted to hold them.
What were they not being honest and beating around the bush about? Like what you don't have to call anyone out or anything like that, but what were some things that you heard, or what were some things that you're like, oh man, like he's not really answering the question. He's acting like a politician.
I would say like mostly like whenever you'd get someone who would like give claims like, oh, the performance is wild. Oh, the hydrophobics are insane. Like those words don't do it for me. And I wanted to talk more about like what is insane, what is wild. Like those are the kinds I just wanted to dive deeper into.
What does that mean? Right?
What does that mean? And what do you mean by it? And can you elaborate in a term that's objective instead of subjective?
Got it. Okay.
When I buy something, I don't want to. Oh, I got this bottle of wild stuff in my hand. I wonder what it does. I would like to know a little bit more. So that was kind of like the premise was just be honest. Like let us be transparent and don't hide things from your customers. Like we just wanted that kind of content.
And you guys are both IT guys, right?
Yes.
You and Eddie?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess you could say that. Yeah. We stare at screens all day.
I'm reminded of, I know you're wearing a PNS hat, and for those who aren't watching this, so this is not to be, I'm trying not to be offending at all, but it reminds me of Beadmaker, when Beadmaker came out, and there was all these videos. Well, it actually wasn't even when Beadmaker came out. Beadmaker had been out for a year or so, and to be fair,
but
PNS, it caught on later, right? And to be fair to PNS, it was always a detail spray, right? It was never like a sealant, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it was matte or whatever, but like it caught on as this like incredible sealant. And
like the end all be all.
Yeah. And then Pan did a video of like, oh my, Pan's react. I think he did it with the Rad Company, right? Of like,
I can see the thumbnail now.
Yeah, he experiences Beadmaker for the first time. Is that kind of the idea that you're talking about of like, okay,
like
but
what makes it that good? That's what I wanted. I want to talk to people about. I was like, I want what's going to make me go, what makes that face? You know what I mean? Like, so just understanding like more of the inner workings or just asking the questions that like you might see people avoid in the comments or like someone might leave a comment asking a question and you see that the creator has answered every single one except that question. Like that's the question I want the answer to.
Got it. So the podcast went good.
Yeah, podcast went good. We had decided around July of this year to take a little break. And
it's a lot to do a podcast. And you guys were doing live streams,
weekly,
right?
Live streams every single week. Like we
and
took
later at night, right? Later in the day.
Yeah. Well, 4 o'clock for us, I guess,
Okay.
but 7 p.m. But still, like, you know, like if you have a 9 to 5 job, you've
And a
got
family,
you've got to like end it on time, and you've got to, you know, so a lot of the scheduling was sometimes stressful, but overall the experience was good. But so July this year, we decided, like, let's take a little break and like kind of regroup, especially because we were always on the cleaner cast folks were always on ours. So we were just kind of like, whose show is what now at this point? Have we just become one big thing, or have we, you know, are we going back to just doing our individual thing? So we had like thrown a couple of ideas around, and we decided to come up with this, like as a group, we decided to come up with this, what do we call it? Detailers Content Network, to just kind of aggregate anybody that wanted to have a podcast. Like you could do it on this channel, which I guess is what the House of Rags Media has done in the last week, like with all of theirs.
Was
so
this
like,
your idea, or is this kind of
we all like
a
kind of
collective
thought
idea?
of it together? I know Alex was drafting up contracts and stuff like that, but we weren't really doing it to be paid, right? Like again, because it's not my primary thing, like money's not the motivating factor behind anything I do, like detail relating. So we decided, like, yeah, let's take a break, and in September, let's take August off, and in September let's relaunch this, and maybe we'll all have one show. And then if other people, you know, if Jimbo wanted to have a show, Jimbo could have a show on the channel, and just have one place for everybody to talk detailing. So that never came to fruition. But in August, we Alex and I got a phone call that the House of Rags was this new up and comer, and they had started a business. It was a phone call from Jamie and Eddie, and that they had started a business, and we just were completely blindsided. We had no idea that any of this was going on behind the scenes for over a year, which is kind of disheartening, because, like I said, like I don't do any of this for money, but I did think of our podcast as kind of a business, right? Like it's.
And did the podcast make money, or was it?
We would get like super chats and stuff, and those super chats would just go right to giveaways. Like, there, you know, the money wasn't the driving factor. So we were a little like, whoa, like you guys had started a company, what? And I think the struggle for us was, each of us had been a Grandambassador for the Rag Company, and me currently being a Grandambassador for the Rag Company, I didn't know how to interact with a new brand that was directly competing with who I'm sponsored by. So that created kind of like a conflict there. I didn't.
Because did they still want to do the kind of podcast network idea?
Yes.
Is that why they were coming back to you, of like, hey, we started this thing, we still, like, kind of a continuation of what we already talked about we're going to do, but Jamie and I started this thing, and we're going to do it under this name now.
Yeah. And so when we were told all of that, and all the details of that, Alex and I were just kind of, because we've built like really good relationships with the people at the Rag Company, and you know, I'm not one to burn bridges and whatnot, but I just
couldn't, right? There's no need for you to do that.
No, absolutely not. And we just could not see a way to move forward without it seeming like this is the House of Rags podcast, or this is the House of Rags sponsored podcast. Like, how can I be neutral to anything when, you know, you guys carry these brands? Like, can I talk about these brands? Or I just didn't, I didn't see a way forward for that. So I was like, you know, maybe we should just end it, part ways. Like, you guys can do your thing, and then, you know, we'll see what goes from there. So that's
why do you think? Because if everyone, I'm just trying to figure this out. If everyone's a Grandambassador at the Rag Company, was there ever, and excuse me, had you guys all visited? And because you guys have done the like a bunch of stuff at the Rad Company together, right?
So
Too?
I've never physically been to the Rad Company.
Okay.
I would say the closest I came to like meeting people at this time was last December, probably like right around a year ago. I was I was obviously friends with Jamie, friends with Eddie, and Jamie was doing his whole clean maker collab
Right.
with PNS. So because we'd all like been friends and whatnot, I got invited to PNS because it's pretty low. It's not that far from me. To go and meet Jamie and kind of spend a day and whatnot, like just hanging out. It was there was no agenda. So that was cool. That was cool to meet. But I've never met the folks at the Rag Company until SEMA this year. So I know that Jamie and Alex they hosted their pre, post, and halftime show for TRCMA. I know it's a video. I've seen videos of Eddie visiting the Rag Company because he's also local. But yeah, I've never been there. So
Because I'm just trying to figure out why, if you had a good relationship with someone or a company, especially as established as the Rad Company is, or seems to be, maybe they're not,
yeah,
but seems to be. And my podcast interaction with them, and I have very little interaction with them at the Rad Company, but they seem like fine people, right? I've
mhm.
never heard any bad
Very
things about
family
them.
oriented. Just
Very
like
family oriented.
the people come first before the company.
Why do you think, and maybe there is something going on, I know Levi just left too, so who
Mhm.
knows, right? But why do you think they would start seemingly a competing brand against someone that honestly gave them a platform, right?
I I think that's the question, right? Like, I don't think that's the question that any of us have the answer to. I feel partially bad because I was selected as a Grand Ambassador for the first trimester of 2024. And because I had had such a fun time doing that, I told I told Eddie, I said, you should apply. You should apply to be a Grand Ambassador. You're putting out great content. There's no way you won't get selected as a Grand Ambassador. Um, I don't think I would have suggested that had I known he was building a competitor. And I don't know why he applied if he knew he was starting a competing business. So I think that's an unanswered question, Jimbo. I don't know the specifics. I don't know if there was things behind the scenes, like maybe things were said. I don't, all I have is speculation at this point.
Yeah, because it seems so interesting to me. Like when I saw them launch, and kudos to them. Whatever. I have my own personal opinions about them based on interactions with them that are in line with someone who would do something like this. But I find it puzzling that two very small creators, granted, I don't know their, you know, they could have full-time jobs that they never talk about, right? So there's
Mhm.
a high likelihood of lack of information on my end.
You only see
But
what people want you to see.
100%, which
Yeah,
is across the board. So that, that is, I don't know what I don't know. And going
exactly.
back to my earlier point, sometimes the more I know, the more I wish I didn't know, right? So
Yes.
I don't know if I even want to know, but it is an interesting thought exercise to see two relatively unknown people, in the grand scheme of things, very, very small channels. Um, they asked me to be on their podcast twice, which I was. And when
Yeah,
I looked,
I think you did I think you did one of the Pink episodes, right? And I think you
yeah,
did one when you launched your
yeah, it was before I launched.
before you launched.
They had reached. I had met Jamie at the car supplies warehouse thing, but really small channel. Eddie, I didn't know who he was at all,
Yeah.
because I don't watch detailing content either,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I like, and for me, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern or whatever, I'm checked out. That's family
It's a
time. I
weird
got
time. It's so
it.
yeah,
I'm not
not
sitting
everyone
on
wants to do
YouTube.
something.
Yeah, it's family time, right? And so I really had no idea who they were, right? And so, but we had a great couple podcasts together, and it was before my launch. And I told them, hey, if you guys want some of this pre-release product, I'll send it to you, and just give me your feedback before I launch, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't. And instead, Jamie posted a video, whatever, right? Basically bashing it, which ironic to see how everything has come out now. because similar to you, it's like, man, this was going on behind the scenes, and then you're putting out this content. That's interesting. But my point is, two pretty much unknown people launched this like distribution company, but it's not really a distribution company, because they're actually, you know, when I think of a traditional distribution company, let's use Rag Company or Car Supplies Warehouse, they have their own warehouse that they bring things in and they distribute to customers. That would
quality
be
control. Yep.
quality control.
Everything is right in house. Yeah.
That would be like, I guess, a traditional distribution company, right? And when they launch, they're fulfilling through a 3PL, which is a distribution company.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a virtual distribution company.
It like, I guess that's a way to put it, right? The now full disclosure, like, I obviously was part of that podcast group, right? Like when you were when you were invited on and whatnot. But I, to the best of my memory now, if someone pulls up a clip and I've said something, like, great, I'll own up to it. But I tried to remain as neutral as possible when it came to discussions about you, because I hadn't tried your products. I hadn't, you left me on red in your request folder, so I never got.
Dude, I feel so bad about that one. For everyone listening, Nick, after Nick's podcast, he's like, "Hey, Joey really wants to come on your podcast." I'm like, "Great, I'd love to have him on the podcast. I think it'd be super fun." He's like, "He DM'd you." I'm like, "Where?" Like, I could not find it for the life of me. Right?
I was just like reply. I think for like maybe a year, I had just like been sending like replies to your stories
at least.
Or whatever. And I was like, he'll read it whenever. Like, I'm not sure.
But it wasn't showing up in my request folder, and so I was like, "Dude, just give my number. Like, just text me."
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, randomly, when you text me, it shows up in my request folder, and I'm like,
yeah,
this freaking guy has messaged me like 12 times, and I've never once responded. Like, I'm such a dick.
I was like asking questions about the products and whatnot. Like,
totally. No, it was all legit stuff, and I like never responded. Like, what an
oh man. So yeah, like I mean, you can if you still want to include me in the circle jerk definition, like, I will take it with honor. That's
what I called it after. So as a basically, Jamie put out a hit piece video on my product brand in the infancy stages of it starting, with a pre-release sample, and I was upset, right? And so I called
it's your baby, right? Like,
it's my baby, and I'm like, dude, to be totally frank, like, doing their podcast did absolutely nothing for me, and they want me to record at 4 p.m., which is family time. So I take time away from my family, who I'd much rather spend time with than those two. But, I'm a big fan of like helping smaller creators. I'm a big fan. I've been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of people's journey. And so I try to give people, I realize when people are trying to social climb, and I play the game because I needed people to do that for me when I first got started. When I was trying to social climb, I relied on people being like, you know what? Yeah, I'll take an hour out of my day to do this podcast that I don't really care about called the Auto Detailing Podcast, right? Like,
yeah,
I appreciated that. So for me, it's like returning the favor. And so when Jamie had reached out and said, "Hey, would you do a podcast?" And then it's like, oh my gosh, you do it at 4 p.m. on a Friday night, like the worst possible time for me ever. Like, it's a commitment to do that. It doesn't, I know it kind of maybe doesn't seem like a commitment. It's like Crimea River, you get to talk and chat with people, but I have a full-fledged family. Okay.
Yes.
Like,
they're wondering, like, when are you going to be home? When are you going to be done?
What are we doing for dinner?
Exactly.
And I'm 30 minutes from home, and so I got to drive, all that, right? And so
now, I apologize, because I take it personally. Like, when we bring someone on the show, and whether it's to help them with exposure, like you said, like, to promote something, when that's like promised and it doesn't go as planned, like, I take it personally. It's happened with a couple other guests where, like, we had plans to launch something or whatever, and like communication fell through. I just feel like I take it way more personally than anybody else. So
but I went into it, no need to be apologetic, because I went into it not expecting anything.
Yes,
because I've also done that for other people. There was a lady, Marcy and Alex. They own a detail shop in Texas. And she was doing like a marketing program thing this is probably 3 years ago now. And she was trying to interview all these different people and basically sell this marketing package. It's a bunch of podcasts that she put together and selling it as a marketing package. And there was nothing in it for me at all, right? But again, I like doing this and I don't mind giving back, and I like helping people that are just starting out. I just really do. And there was nothing for me to gain out of that, except I got one person who listened to it, and he lives in LA, and him and I have become really good friends. And so it's like, I don't need a sale out of it. I don't need anything out of it. Sometimes it's just another rep and more practice. And that's kind of how I viewed that podcast of like, I remember meeting Jamie at Car Supplies Warehouse. I don't have anything against him. He seemed like a fine guy. I didn't even really talk to him there, but he seems fine. He wants to do a podcast. I look at it. It's like, oh, he's got like 6 followers. Like, okay, I'll just do it because it's probably a social climb, and why not? Right. Like, maybe someone will hear it and I'll become friends with them, or, point being, I don't always need something. Right. But the fact that I did that, and then I get like, I have another quote, no good deed goes unpunished. Right. And so like, I get punished basically for doing this thing that I didn't even want to do. Yeah. And I get this guy that's just like talking mad trash on a product that just launched when it's in like its infancy stages and super fragile. I'm like, what a dick move, right? And then I start looking.
And this is what I thought you hated. And I was like, he hasn't responded to any of my messages. Like, I don't even know how I pissed this guy off.
Which is, that's the internet for you, right? Of like,
yeah, exactly.
You could start swirling all these things in your head, and it's like, I literally just didn't see it for whatever reason. And so that's my gripe, is like, dude, why are you doing that? Like, why are you coming out? Why wouldn't you send me a message and say, hey man, I use your product like this, and am I doing something wrong, or blah, blah, like, no. But he went straight for like clickbait. And then when I started looking at his content and Eddie's content and probably your content or whatever, I'm like, these guys just like, someone does one thing, Jamie talks about Beadmaker, and then everyone else talks about Beadmaker, and then everyone reposts each other. And I'm like,
yeah, there's a big repost culture. I will admit,
big repost, right? And I'm like, this is a big circle jerk, right? Because it is.
I see it.
And for some reason, I guess Eddie got really mad at that, which I think is really funny, with all his innuendos and, things he likes to say. But it's funny because it actually is what it is, right? It's a circle jerk. And so anyway,
there's still a lot of circle jerking going on in this industry, and I again wish I didn't know about it.
And I feel bad for you because like, I am in the industry, like my 9 to 5 per se is this industry, right?
Yeah.
And so, but for you, it's like, if it's not, I think it takes away, if it's a hobby, right? And it's supposed to be an outlet, the last thing you want it to be is a burden, right?
The last thing I want is like drama, right? Like
drama.
It's not, I don't know. It's not what I got into this for. And there, like when all of this happened, and whatever, if people want to call it a fallout or whatever, I'd read comments and people were like, oh, Joey just seems like really bitter and this and that. It's like, I'm not, there's no money involved. Like I told you, I'm not involved. Like I'm not in this.
Like, I'm more upset. More upset that I lost a friend.
It's that, yeah, like I was enjoying what I was doing every single week, and to just kind of like throw that away for something else you were building on the side, whatever. Like I'm on the record, I'm not bitter. I'm just, there are better ways to go about things.
Why do you think they went about, and honestly, I don't want to harp on this for too long. This was not why I wanted to do, I didn't want to do a podcast to just talk about this, because I'm really focusing on, getting back to the enjoyable parts of the industry, and
podcast in the room, and you got people want to
the huge elephant in the room. People want to address it. And when you talk about things like the reason why you started a podcast in the first place was to talk about the things that people didn't talk about, right?
Yes.
The manufacturer responding to every comment except for that one comment,
The one comment you want the answer to. Yeah, exactly.
You want the answer to. And I think, that is part of why I wanted to have you on the show. But part of it too is like, I knew you did podcasts before. And so getting interesting people on the show that have experience doing podcasts. And then when I saw how many DMs I didn't respond to, I felt really bad too. But also just to connect with, to get, for me selfishly too, to get back to that place of like enjoying the industry. And for me, podcasting is like my favorite content medium. And so adding video to that's a little interesting to me. I'm a big audio only guy. Anyway, all that to say,
try to watch I'll try to listen to like a lot of video podcasts while I'm in the garage doing something, and I realize like they're holding something up or they're showing like I need to see it. So there's like two different. There's like the relax at night, watch the video part, and then the audio stuff, like while I'm working or something.
So why? I have a two-part question. Why do you think they went about it this way? And two, why do you think you weren't included?
Well, so let's see. To answer the first one, why do I think they went about it this way? I don't think that they have nearly as much control as they might lead on that they have. There's definitely people behind the scenes that might have more ability to call the shots than they do. The word NDA was thrown around a lot when they did tell us this stuff. So I just think that they were, I think they were bound by the powers
by
that
someone.
be. Yes, that would be I think a fair assessment, because I mean, costs a lot of money to do what they're doing, and not to say that people don't have the money to do it, but it's a big undertaking.
I think there's enough content out there that you can get a pretty good gauge of someone's anyway, I'll leave that there. But so you think they were approached by someone who had an idea to do a podcast?
I think so. Like if I had to guess from like a complete outside perspective, it would be that here are two people with a pretty good following, with a good amount of subscribers, and people are flocking to them, and we would like to use them as the face of this brand. Now, I could be completely wrong, because I'm not under any NDAs, but that would, I don't know. It things seem to line up that's the case.
Okay. And so why do you think they wouldn't have included you in on this? Or did they try to?
I was never mentioned. Not a single thing. And like I could go for hours of like, why didn't they ask me? Why didn't they want me to be part of, like, but like,
I mean, would you I guess a better question is, would you have even wanted to be a part of that, of what it is now?
I've never wanted to own or run or be employed by a distribution company. I've worked time in retail. Selling things is not my forte. So I probably, if they did approach me, I'd probably say no.
Got it.
It's just not where my passion is. Like we talked about earlier, right? You're like, if I'm in it that deep, I'm not going to enjoy this anymore. That's how I see it. So I don't know why, and like I said, I could speculate why I wasn't asked, but in hindsight, I could be completely wrong about it. But in hindsight, I think a lot of the guests that we had on the Keep It Real podcast or the Cleaner Cast, I think it was, looking back, it feels like it was like a vetting process, because a lot of the vendors or brands or representatives that we had on our podcast are now carried at the House of Rags. So instead of, I think I feel a little bit of betrayal, if I'm correct in that sense, because here I am thinking we're just having conversations with interesting people and interesting brands, but maybe business dealings were going on, behind my back or under my nose, and I didn't even realize it. So that's a little disheartening, but again, I don't know that is true or not. It's just, it appears that way.
Mm-hmm. And then did you go to SEMA this past year?
I did.
How was
So
that? What was
like
it
I,
your first time or
yeah, first time.
first time
Uh,
at SEMA?
it was wild.
So
So
wow, walk us through that. Yeah.
like I said, in the time of having the podcast and making these relationships, PNS was one of the relationships that I had built. And I was invited over the summer to be part of Team PNS's Monterey Car Week team. Unfortunately, I got sick. I couldn't make it, but they still extended the invite to those people to represent PNS at SEMA. So I was like, oh, okay. Like I really appreciate you guys still considering me part of the team, even though I wasn't able to
Is
make
that a
it.
paid thing or is that they cover your room and board? Do you have to pay for everything yourself? I'm just
It
curious.
wasn't it wasn't a paid thing. It
Okay.
was but then again, like I'm also like local, right? So I don't know if it's different for people who are further away.
Got it.
Um, but
Just curious. Not, I don't know
yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
can talk about that, but
The SEMA thing, I got invited as part of that, and then I'm pretty good friends with Bradley and DJ from the Armor Detail
okay.
Supply, the Armor Detail Supply guys, and they were like, "Hey, we've got like a big suite. Like, why don't you just stay with us?" And so the fact that I had an invite to SEMA and a place to stay,
I'm
and all I
in.
needed to buy was a flight, like it kind of all worked out. So
And from
that was
California to Nevada is an
yeah, it was an
easy
hour,
flight.
hour and a
Yeah.
half flight. It was nothing. The way home sucked, but yeah, it was an awesome experience. It was exhausting, uh,
And you
but
worked
it
the
was
the PNS booth the whole time or
just one of the days.
okay.
Each member of the Monterey team was able to pick a like a time slot that to represent, and then still have time to enjoy the floor show. So
Okay.
the show floor. So I did it on Thursday morning, and then
Okay.
the rest of the week was just floating around and meeting all these people that I had like built a relationship with through the podcast or through these live chats, and it was just a really nice experience.
What what were your expectations for the SEMA show going into it? And then when you got there, did it meet your expectations, exceed your expectations? Did it let you down?
Much bigger than I expected.
Okay.
Like people, everyone had warned me like you're gonna be walking 30,000-40,000 steps a day, and I was like, yeah, whatever, like I'll probably just find some people to talk to, and we'll shoot the shit for a little bit. But the amount of walking, the amount of talking, like everything exceeded my expectations. um the There was a little bit of like like I said, like back to the drama. People were like, oh, how was it to run into the House of Rag? And like it's like we're adults, right? Like I walked over there and I was like, hey guys, like, hey Eddie,
I
nice
think you
to
should say
finally meet you
you're
in
an adult.
person. And I was like, Eddie, it's nice to meet you finally. I gave him a hug. I, said hi to Jamie. I said hi to all these people, and then I went about my day. Like
Right.
it people think it like just dwells on my mind all
It's
day.
like
It
all
doesn't.
consuming.
Yeah, I was like,
Right.
I'm gonna go say hi to these people. I'm gonna and then go about my week. So the I think there were a lot of that mindset of drama. I think a lot of people were expecting like I don't know, a big dramatic blow up or something. But
So funny because
it was a fun time.
I can think of like so many, whether it's Scott with Dallas Paint Correction or Billy Bogus and with American Detailer Garage, and there's always been, it seems like, I don't know what it is about SEMA time, but there's always like people always think there's gonna be like a fist fight in the middle, like
Exactly.
every
They
year.
think
It's
there's
just,
alcohol. It's Vegas. Like people are just gonna start swinging. Like that's
but a funny thing happens when people get face to face is none of that happens, and they end up hugging it out and being BFFs.
exactly. Like
Which is why I didn't go to
I'm not.
SEMA. I didn't want to hug it
I'm
out.
I'm not I don't hold grudges, right? I, I like to just, if there's a beef, if you've got a problem with me, like let's squash it
Sure.
and move on. So my whole thing was saying hi, like I respect you on a human level and this and that. Like we might have different professional opinions of each other or decisions that have been made, but like I'm not, I don't write people off just because of things like that. So that's that's was my approach to going to SEMA and just kind of like, whatever, toss it
And
under the
life
rug.
is long, it's like
Yeah.
burning bridges. We've seen people, move between brands and stuff like that. And I think this industry is also very small and people move and it's a long game. And I think burning bridges, and I've done my fair share of burning bridges for sure. But burning bridges never works out good, because you need other people. Prime example is me doing this podcast of like, I need to reach out to people to have guests, right? And so if I burn bridges and those people don't want to be guests, there's that. And so it's unfortunate to seem like there has been some bridge burning, in the start of their new venture.
Yeah, it's a bummer. It's especially like knowing how close some of these people were prior, and being in group chats and stuff like that are just no longer active. Like it's a sad thing.
Yeah. What was are you also a car guy, or are you just like the car cleaning guy? Because me personally, I'm just a car cleaning guy. I don't really like care much about other
to
stuff.
an extent.
Okay.
If it's like Volkswagen related, like I'll pay attention to it. Yeah.
Got it.
But
because I was going to ask, like with SEMA, did you stay mainly just in the detailing hall, or did you venture out to see other stuff?
I mostly stayed in the West Hall. North Hall, I checked out a couple of like the new up and comers and stuff. But I did go by, I think it was the Central Hall where McGuire's was, and they had the Throttle guys had their Skyline replica from Too Fast, Too Furious, and I was like, it's a pretty nice build. Like it was cool seeing that in person. So
got it.
Cars like that, like we'll get, like from a movie or something, like might get me excited. But yeah, I'm not a big wrencher.
Like, is that a 327 or is that a 428? And I'm like, I don't know, bro. What does that mean?
Don't know what those numbers mean,
I'm like, it's a 526, and they're like, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, of course it doesn't.
Oh, man.
Were there any products that like stood out to you at SEMA that you saw when you were cruising around?
I did. So I stopped by the ShineMate booth, and I know there's all this talk about, Merca this, Merca that, and it's the, $900 3-inch polisher that like people seem to love if they've tried it. ShineMate has I want to say a similar machine coming out that has a trigger lock. I mean, unless I was holding them both side by side to feel the smoothness, I don't think I'd be able to really tell the difference. And it's like a third of the price. So that's something I was excited in. I'm a big fan of like 3-inch. Some people are like, oh, I'll just do the whole car with a 6-inch. I'm a big fan. Like I'll do a whole car with a 3-inch. I don't know why. I just like
because you're doing Volkswagens. Polisher. That's why.
Exactly. They're small enough, man.
What do you think of the new Volkswagen? I guess they call it the Buzz, not the Bus. But if you're a Volkswagen guy, what do you think about that?
I think if I were a mobile detailer, that I'd probably want that to be my rig, just as kind of like a little flex. Like, I don't know, it's just a cool looking little thing, and I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of it.
I think
it could be a little bit cheaper, but
what is the price of it?
It's up there. I think I want to say it's in the 70s. I could be wrong.
Got it.
But yeah, I think like if money wasn't an object and you're a mobile detailer, like I think that's really cool. Little
I think it might have a bigger impact than getting a Cybertruck. I remember a lot of people like looking at a Cybertruck for like I saw a pool cleaner with the Cybertruck. I thought it was kind of interesting, but it stood out and I remember it, Yep. And so, but that's a good idea, a mobile detailer. I remember seeing that they had it as a concept car when I went to Pebble Beach, I think in 2016. Actually interviewed Adam Patali there.
Nice.
But they had that Volkswagen Bus as a concept car back then, and it looks pretty similar.
I feel like we've been seeing pictures of it forever, and they stayed pretty true to the renders.
Yeah, which is really cool. I wish they would do not just Volkswagen, but all brands, like release more of the concept cars. I think that'd be really cool. Yeah. I think cars are really boring right now.
I used to get super excited about concept. Like when I was a teenager, I'd be like, oh my God, this is going to be perfect when I have my license. And like, then you realize like none of these come to fruition.
Never going to happen. Yeah. Yeah. So what's next for you? Are you trying to make detailing more of a hobby again and get out of the drama? Sorry for adding to it probably, but like
That's okay.
truly, what do you, um, you can forgive and forgive
Yeah.
people and kind of move on and all that. But does this happening to you kind of skew your opinion of the industry? Does it make it even more so of like, I don't want to be in bed with anyone anymore? Like what are your thoughts coming out of it? And then what does the future look like for you?
There's definitely pieces of the like I don't want to be involved in this, or if it's something that like I may have heard a rumor of that like I had already heard ramblings about, I might be like a little reluctant to work with that brand or something. But I think I just want to keep doing what I'm doing, which is trying out products, making videos of products that I like, sharing my friends' stuff and just talking to people in this good people in this industry. Like so when all of this happened, everyone was like, JB, you and Alex need to like do your own podcast because you both got shafted or whatever. Um, we we took the time, we regrouped, we wanted to make sure that we did it right. So we did a few months ago launch the Detail Grind podcast with me and Alex, and that's on YouTube. And the whole premise of that is that you detailers who are doing this full time, it's a grind for you. It's also a play on words. Like we like coffee. We want to talk about what coffee we're drinking or whatever that
Okay.
day, or sip on a cup while we're doing that. But we want to hear the grind, whether it's from a hobbyist. It's like you said, like you asked me about my 9 to 5 and how does detailing fall into that, or if you're a professional, like what's your day to day grind look like. So we still want to talk to people. We still want to keep it honest. I keep saying like a lot of people are like eating it up, but out of all of this, like I'm the only one still keeping it real after all of this. Um, but that's really what I want to do is I want to chat with people. I want to maybe like flip my cynical view of things in the industry and hopefully, like you said, get back to the just go out there and enjoy being in the driveway. So that's what we've been doing. We've got 5 episodes under our belt so far, and we're not worried about subscriber numbers. We're not worried about what viewers. We're just doing what we enjoyed, and that was to sit down with our friends every week and just kind of have a conversation about detailing, and so far so good.
I love that, man. I think people resonate with that. I think I love that little sound clip. You guys are the only ones still keeping it real because they've shut down all their other media channels for the most part, right? Other than
For the most part, I see
okay.
I see Eddie post stuff on EC Details still, but I think most of it's coming from the Thor channel.
Got it.
And hopefully people want to listen to our podcast. Like I know it's going to be hard to not get podcast fatigue with how many new podcasts are coming out. But yeah, like
but not everyone's good. So I will say that, like, having done this for 10 years, like, I see all these new podcasts coming out, and not to take away from those people that are really trying to do it, but there's a lot of podcasts out there in general, and there's a lot of not good podcasts out there, right? It could be their
yeah,
audio, it could be their video, it could be, hey, some people are just not like vibrant enough. And
yeah,
to be honest, I've had a lot of guests like that where it's like, hey man, tell me your story. And they're like, well, it's pretty much like everyone else's. And you're like, hey, we're 92 seconds into this and it's over. Right.
yeah,
So like
yeah,
I've seen a lot of podcasts, a lot of detailing podcasts come up. And I'm like, to be frank, some of these people just aren't good. Right. And like
yeah.
you have to be able to pull information out of people, especially when people get very boring, right? Luckily,
Yep.
that's why I reached out to you, and kind of my resurgence into video podcasting is only with people that I'm pretty confident in that can be good.
Well, I appreciate it because I mean I go into it and I'm like I don't know why people listen to me. I don't know why people are watching me. And
Because people want to connect with people that are real, right?
yeah,
Like there are more people like you out there that have a 9 to 5, right? That just love detailing on the side. I have a customer with my product brand business, right? And he used to golf. Golfing is his hobby, right? His passion, whatever. He has a regular job and he golfed on the weekends, right? Well, he got married and has a kid, right? Golfing is out the window because he's like, there's no time, right? And he's like, but I still need that outlet of like the break, right? And he goes, so I just like, I don't have a nice car. I have a decent car, but it's not anything crazy. And he's like, I just thought, maybe I got a garage and a driveway. I thought maybe I'll just start cleaning my car. And like, it'd take up a couple hours on a Saturday and not 8 hours on a Saturday like golf did. And so he started getting into it, right? And like, he's not in the weeds of it, of knowing the drama and all the BS and all that.
I'm jealous.
Same, right? But he just loves detailing, right? And loves quality products and like is a sponge. And it's like when I launched my product brand business and I started interacting with people like that was the start of the untying of all the BS that I know of like, those are people I want to connect with. Because that's
you hear that in your videos. You say like, this is built for the guy who wants to wash his car on the, spend a couple hours on a Saturday and wash his car before he goes out and does stuff with his family. Like that's the market. That's what I want to do with these products. Like that's how
that market is way bigger, way better than sorry for the professional detailers out there, but there's a lot of professional detailers. I'm a professional detailer that think they're better than they are, right? And the reality is you guys dilute gallons down and cut it to the nth degree and you don't have a pot to piss in, right? And that for me trying to grow a product brand is not sustainable, right? I'd be happy for you to be my customer, but you guys also are the ones that complain the most, right? And I've been there. I've been that detailer.
You can't cater to the detailer. It's hard.
And in my private label side of the industry, I've seen it time and time again where people try to cater to this like professional line or whatever. Doesn't work. It does not work. Time and time. Turtle Wax just did it and it's gone already.
The pros are usually locked in with their systems, right? They're going to be super skeptical about anything that you throw their way and say this is better. Like
skeptical and difficult.
Exactly. It's almost not even worth it to go down that route.
I love professional detailers. I am a professional detailer, but I know you're buying off the truck. It's just a different market, right? It's just a different market and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a different market. But I love, because I'm coming from a place of being so cynical and seeing all the garbage, and really it ends up weighing on you more, right, than anything. And it's like, I gotta let this go.
I've had to unsubscribe to certain channels and people just like for my own mental health. I was like,
just clean house.
I don't need all of that in my life. Like if I want to go check in on it, I will, but I don't need to see it constantly. And I mute family members on Facebook. I'm like, they're posting nonsense. Snooze them for 30 days. Come back and we'll see if you've made it
cleaned up. Yeah,
exactly.
And another thing that I also realized is like the enthusiasts don't have the time. Not only do they not care, but they also don't have the time to be caught up in the drama.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like dedicating. And that's why I started with this podcast episode is like, I really want to know about Joey. We will address the elephant in the room and talk about that, obviously, because it's part of your life and it's part of your story too. But like the casual observer, detail enthusiast has no idea what happened, nor do they care.
No. And I think from my perspective, like when I'm watching this and I'm just like, why are people falling for this or whatever? I have to realize that I have a different perspective of knowing what's going on in the background. And those people who are eating it up and who are supporting it, those are who I used to be and who I wish I could still be. They don't know anything about what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm starting to be able to separate that, but it's a skill I have to learn.
It's a grind, some would say.
It's a grind. Yeah, absolutely.
Where do you hope that, and I hope everyone listening to this goes and subscribes to your guys' podcast. Are you doing live podcast episodes?
Yeah, we do live at the worst time of 4 p.m. on a Friday. I just want to put that out there.
With that being said, if you ever, I will, just like I did for the cleaner cast or whatever, I'm happy. And this is to you, Joey, but also everyone else. Like, I'm more than happy to donate my time to
We
people
appreciate it.
that are cool, So if you ever are looking for a guest, I'm happy to do it. And I really do like doing it. Because more than anything, I like telling people stories, and I like it's starting to come to fruition, which is really cool. Like, I interviewed Claude. Nick is a great example. Like,
Yep. Great interview with
Nick,
Nick.
Nick was in the dirt, man. Like,
Yep.
people don't even know when he says he was popping Adderall, drinking Monsters, and smoking cigs like a chimney. Like, he was. There was no. I
Yeah.
remember watching it and being like, "You're a train wreck, dude," and there's no help. Like,
Yep.
I don't even know what to do, right? But to be able to kind of like tell that story and then tell where he is now is so awesome and
Yeah.
inspiring to people, right?
Absolutely.
And
I
those
was
are the
so happy to
stories.
meet Nick in Vegas. Like we had chatted a few times. He had been on the podcast, but like Nick was one of my favorite people to meet because he's just he's got this very positive uh uh um
Vibe. He's very into the
vibe.
vibe.
Yeah. He's very you can go in there like guns blazing and he will somehow diffuse the situation because he's
Yeah.
just very chill.
Yes. And I think, to kind of button this up too, if we have to, or we don't have to, but like, I think when you look at those two options, like, you can be involved in the drama and the BS of things, and it's a very dark place.
Yep.
Or you could choose to surround yourself with cool people, awesome people that just want to learn and like do things.
Yep.
Like Nick, like yourself. It's a very cool spot. And then I love kind of just facilitating that, and then being like, in 5 years from now, when we've done 3 or 4 podcast episodes together, it's like, remember back when you just started the detail
Yeah.
grind? You said you didn't want to quit your job, but now you have to.
Now look at it. Yeah, exactly.
Now look at you. And it's like, but I also think that people want to see that, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's why we're seeing that reemergence. Maybe I'm just really dumb and never saw it. A video podcast of like, people want to sit there and be entertained, but also inspired, but also hear people's other stories, because so often we feel like we're out on an island by ourselves,
Yeah.
right? And then to
Yeah.
hear other people of like, man, he does Adderall and like smokes like a chimney and he made it out of that. Like, all right, cool. Like, I
Yep.
can too then, like a little
Yep.
a ray of sunshine, a little ray of hope.
And that's what drew me to like the community at first, like with the live chats and just these other people who are sharing. Sometimes I was like, wow, you're sharing a lot of information, but like these are good people who just want to communicate with others with like mindset.
Yeah.
So
And I will
that's what drew me
say,
on.
I mean, not to kind of beat a dead horse, but having met so many different people in this industry, I will say the vast majority of people, especially if you get a chance to meet them in person, are just amazing people and
Yes.
really are just grinding it out and
Yeah.
trying to do it. And to circle all the way back, like Dane, and Anthony too, but just awesome people, family
Yep.
people,
Yep.
really trying to help out, make a profit along the way. But also the people that support them want to see them succeed. And I
Yep.
think that's another thing that is very toxic in this industry too, is like people not wanting to see other people succeed. Right.
And I think that was a misconception when all of this went down was people were like Joey's bitter blah blah blah. I want my friends to succeed. If these people are close to me, I don't want to see anybody fail. I want them to whatever aspect of their life it is, I want them to do good. I want them to do good, but I want them to do it the right way. Like I want just, the,
Just don't be a dick about it.
don't be a
Right.
dick about it. Don't lie about it. Like people are smarter than you give them credit for. So like to blatantly like tell someone something that's not true, I don't know, it's like a slap in the face to your supporters. Like don't
It's the lies, man. I'm with you on that. It's the lies that I really they get to me so bad. And I have to keep myself in check with them,
yeah.
because it's like the lie. And I was talking to Nick about this. I'm like, just why do they have to lie?
Yeah.
Why?
The I'm not a good liar. And like you can ask anybody that, mostly because you have to keep that lie up. You tell someone a lie and then You know, like
Yeah.
if I said, "Oh, I can't work today, I'm sick," and then I'm out there in the driveway, you know, detailing a car, and then someone goes, "Hey, how was that car?" Like I have to now build that. Oh, I was
Right.
coughing the whole time. Like
Right.
it's not for me. So I don't know. It's just not something that I support, or it's not something that I'm a fan of. Just because when you're lying to the people that support you, it's a slap in the face.
Totally. Yeah. That's a
So
good soundbite. All right. I think we did it for our first episode together.
yeah,
So
man, that's
if
had a
people
good
want
time.
to follow you and Alex and the podcast or whatever, how can they? Is it just Detail Grind Podcast on
Detail
YouTube?
Grind Podcast on Facebook, or I'm sorry, not on Facebook, on YouTube and on Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at Jay Balinski on Instagram, and that's where most of my content is. Like I said, as a Graham ambassador, Graham is the main word, so Instagram is mostly where my content is. And Alex is Bucky VW. Follow my Canadian co-host. You know, he's such a good guy. I'm so glad to be doing the podcast with him. We both have just the same outlook of we're just enthusiasts, and we want to talk to other enthusiasts about this. I couldn't have asked for a better co-host than Alex. So give us all a follow.